Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Profit Minds podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Stephen Kirch, creator of the Profit Minds Growth System, a unique blend of profit growth, productivity acceleration, and building robust business process for scale. In every episode, I interview entrepreneurs and small business owners from around the world with a unique story to tell. You can find the show on YouTube, LinkedIn, Apple and Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and more. Hi, everyone. Today, my guest is Scott Warrick, author of Healing the Human Brain. And today, we'll be talking about how the brain gets damaged and how you can fix it. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hey, it's great to have you here. I'm fascinated by this topic. Tell me your story. And I know you have a pretty unique story here. So tell me the story. How did you get into this? And how did you come to be fascinated by the brain?
Actually, great question, because it's like most things in life, it was all just an accident and not something you asked for. In 1993, my oldest son, Michael, was born, and I operated like a normal child for several years, but started to show a few little quirks and things like this. And then it just seemed to continue. And we went and spent several years getting him evaluated. And finally, in 2001, in the summer, he was diagnosed with Asperger's autism. Now, this explosion of autism in this country just scares every parent to death. So we went to every board certified top-notch psychiatrist that we could find. And these guys and gals did not take insurance, and they're $400 or $500 an hour. And so we were getting the best what we thought was out there. And we were told universally, it's just the way he's wired. If it was chemical, we could do more with drugs, okay, and medications, but it's just the way he's wired. So you better prepare yourself. There's nothing you can do about that. He might need a special high school. He might not be mainstream, and he might not go to college. So I was devastated. I mean, I'm a human resource guy and an employment attorney. And so I started doing my own research, and I spent the next 2 or 3 years researching the human brain. And I discovered at the turn of the century, there was a huge battle between the neuroscientists, the guys and gals in the lab, and the neurologists and psychiatrists. And we were discovering everything. We had just discovered where the fight or flight system was, the amygdalas. We had just discovered all kinds of things. And now the neuroscientists were telling us, you can rewire the human brain if you treat it right. And so I spent the next few years, we went and got his brain scanned at the Amen clinics, Dr. Daniel Amen, that you've probably seen on PBS. And his brain was a mess, just hot spots and all kinds of stuff. So we started with therapies, all kinds of new vitamins and minerals, new diet. Took him back in 2008, and his brain had rewired itself about 15% better. So at that same time, my wife, and I will tell you, if you do not have somebody in your life who will tell you what's what, you better go rent one. Because my wife told me, she goes, when we're there, you're getting scanned. She said, you are nuts. And like most attorneys and like a lot of people that live through abusive situations, my brain was burned to a crisp. Okay. And I had what was diagnosed as post-traumatic stress disorder. Well, we both got on our horses, and we changed our lifestyles. We changed our diet, therapies. Make a long story short, we both got our brains rescanned again in 2020. My brain is 85% or so cured. His is about 75% rewired. And just to let you know, Michael went on to graduate from The Ohio State University with honors, and then graduated from Roosevelt University in Chicago with his master's degree in psychology with a 3.91 grade point average. Now, here's a kid with autism that we dropped and left in the middle of Chicago by the Buckingham Fountain, and he thrived. So yes, you can repair improve and maybe even cure these mental disorders that 80% of all of us suffer from.
Wow. That's an amazing story. I mean, I know when I was growing up, I'm a scientist, right? I have a PhD in physics, and I'm always fascinated by science and learning and all that kind of stuff. And I remember, them telling us that your brain was basically set by the time you were 25, right? That was the belief back, in the 60s and 70s, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't until, we started being able to do, these scans of the brain and watch the brain fire, that we realized, no, in fact, the brain can rewire. Now, of course, we had all these anecdotal evidence, right, of, people that go blind, their hearing was rewired, and people that lost their hearing, their sight, all kinds of things like that. But somehow scientists didn't connect that with fixing things like autism.
Right, absolutely. And you hit it right on the head. And one of these discoveries, and I was even hearing this at the turn of the century, and I'm talking 2001, 2002, 2003, 2004, 2005, and even within the last 10 years, I'm still hearing this. You're born with all the brain cells you're ever going to get. That is not true. You have baby stem cells in your brain.
Yeah.
You grow 100,000 new brain cells every month. And if you treat it right, that's how we rewired our brain, is we're growing 100,000 new ones every month. That's called neurogenesis. But what's really exciting, and this continues right up until you die, you grow, when you fire those neurons and you fire them and all that electricity's going, they will overload with electricity and they'll grow more sprouts. So if you treat your brain right, not like a usual American, you can grow 100,000 new brain cells every month, and every one of those cells can grow 10 to 100 new sprouts. That's called synaptogenesis. All of that is what I was learning, and we were told by everyone, you can't do this. This is not something that you're wasting your time, you're wasting your money. And man, I am one of the few people in America that's got these scans, and I can prove it. And understand, I'm a lawyer. I am a good researcher. And I'll tell you, if I can't enter something into evidence, I will never say it. And I have a whole storage unit full of my research. I tell you, if I say it, I can prove it. I can back it up.
Wow. So tell me a little bit about the book, the Healing the Human Brain.
Yeah, that is a love project for me. So really took 20 years to research and 10 years to write. Those obviously overlap. It starts off and talks about what this book is about, and it's about hope. It's about hope. Now think about this. A lot of folks, we treat our brains like soccer balls. So a lot of people we know will take their medications, which I applaud. That's fantastic if you're on the right ones, okay, which is a big if. But if you are, you take the right ones. But you ever notice people that they're taking their medication, and understand, psychiatric medications calm the symptoms. It's like pain medication for your foot. So if you break your foot and you go to the doctor and you say, well, my foot really hurts. He goes, okay, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you these really good pain pills, and that's going to take care of it. So you take these pills and off you go. Well, what's going to happen is those pain pills are going to work for a while, but you're going to keep walking on the bone. You're going to displace it. You're going to do all kinds of things to it. It's going to get worse until the bone is sticking out somewhere. You got a sixth toe. Okay. That's what we do with our brains. We take the medications, calms the brain down so we feel better, but we keep destroying. We keep working with bullies. We keep toxic relationships. We eat like goats. Okay. 25% of all of our meals come from fast food. You can't do that. It'll destroy your brain. And so if you do take care of your brain, I talk all about what happened to me as a child. Now, Michael and I make really good comparisons. I was not born, in my wife's words, nuts. I wasn't born nuts. But I will tell you right now, abuse of the world, and I always love this. Oh, those kids, they're just playing. They're beating the crap out of each other. You got somebody getting bullied. Don't ever, ever let that happen. And I'll tell you right now, I feel strongly about this. You show me a bully, I will show you somebody who is blowing 2 or 1.5 cigarettes in your face. If you smoke, you've increased your chance of premature death by 60%. That should not surprise anybody. But if you hang around with a bully, or if you're in a toxic relationship, which is usually at work, that is like smoking 1.5 cigarettes. It's 40% worse than smoking. You double your chance of premature death. And it's from all that cortisol and adrenaline. And all that cortisol and adrenaline, 20% goes to 2% of your body, your brain. And your brain feels like soft room temperature butter. You will burn it to a sizzle fast. Actually, your brain is the first organ to go. So this is all the stuff that happened to me. My son was born that way. So what a great comparison. He was born this way. I did it to myself. Both of us showed tremendous improvement. And I'll tell you right now, I used to think it was normal to wake up and figure whether or not you were going to kill yourself that day. I thought that was normal. Of course, people think about that. They think about that every day, don't they? No, that's not normal. Okay. And
it was normal for you.
It was the norm for me. And that meant that I had a broken brain. And understand, I had, with all this flooding of adrenaline and cortisol, I had burned it. So I then, for like the second half of the book, we talked about what Michael did and what I did. New diet, new therapies, hobbies. Okay. Going bowling and relaxing with friends is really good for your brain. Gardening is good for your brain. I'll tell you, I am surrounded by these. Okay. These are like 32 ounces. You have, and this is something everybody can start doing right now. You got to drink half your weight in ounces in water every day. Every day. And I still get doctors today. It's funny. Oh, no, that's too much. Yeah, there you go. Okay. And I use this in my practice because I do a lot of coaching for people who are on the way out the door. It's their emotional intelligence. You can't control your ego and emotions if you got a damaged brain. And I'll tell you, I got all kinds of clients right now that they're getting their water, they're taking their vitamins, they're getting their physicals. I have caught more people who are acting like royal jackasses and their thyroid is shot. They're diabetic. They had no idea. Okay, so all these things dictate how the brain works. And so that's what it tells people to do. And in the bottom line, you read the book, you go through, you take notes, and you adopt 2 or 3 things, and then you adopt another one, and you adopt another one, and until eventually you start sleeping really good. That means your brain is healthy. Yeah.
So talk to me about how this topic will help an entrepreneur, a small business owner. I mean, this is fascinating to me because obviously, the whole psychology of where you come from and who you are, and so talk to me about this.
Oh no, this is, and I'll tell you, what we're learning all the time is just completely blowing my mind because we're really on a roll now. So you're a young entrepreneur, okay, and I'm
not a young entrepreneur. I'm an old entrepreneur, but okay.
Let's say your listener out there is saying you're just getting started. You're 30, 40, 50, 20, 60, but you're going to start your own thing. Okay. Rule number 1, you better take care of your brain. Take care of your brain. We spend more money on our feet than we do our brain. We would never walk across hot coals with our brain, but with our feet. But we deal with jackasses all the time and let them come in. So take care of your brain because your brain does everything. And really stop and think about this. Your body is nothing but a transport system for your brain. You are your brain. And so how profitable do you want to be? Well, how well do you handle customers? How do you handle conflict? Okay. And I will tell you right now, if you cannot take a breath, control those emotions and ego, you will never be able to address and resolve conflict. And that means you'll never be happy. You will get divorced. You will alienate employees. You will alienate clients, and you won't be around anymore. So I don't care if you are the greatest accountant. I don't care if you're the greatest plumber. I don't care if you designed a way to color diamonds and taste good. I don't care. You ain't going to be around if you cannot relate to people. And if you've got a damaged brain, and let me just keep this in perspective. A happy, healthy, functioning brain is Betty White. Betty White. Okay. Tough.
Yeah.
I used to use George Burns as an example, but not as many people remember George anymore. See, I'm 62 and a half. So that dates me, but I will tell you, Betty, great sense of humor. She did not go from 0 to 60 with her temper all the time. Okay. Now, would she get mad? You do not push Betty White around. All 5'2" of her. You do not push her around. But and think about this. When she died, clarity of thought. The neurons in your brain have a life expectancy of 120 years. Now think about that. She was a few days short of 100. Clarity of thought. Let me clue you in. If you start to lose your short-term memory, chances are good you asked for it. You flooded your brain with cortisol and adrenaline, and your amygdalas, your fight or flight response, actually attaches to your short-term memory. So when you flood your brain with cortisol and adrenaline, all those little neurons in your brain, you're killing them. Do you ever wonder why people keep their long-term memory but lose their short-term? When you sleep at night, your long-term memory is all back up in here in the back of your brain. You transfer it. Your short-term memory is right down here in all of the Civil War battles. So guess what? Be Betty White. If you know anybody who goes from 0 to 60 with their temper all the time, or are hypersensitive and they're upset over everything, that is brain damage. That is brain damage, and they need to adopt a new lifestyle and start healing your brain. And really, one of the first places you start to regrow and repair is in your short-term memory. So you want to be successful, you want to be happy, take care of that brain.
That's really cool. So the other flip side of that, right? So you talked about entrepreneurs and small business owners. The flip side of that is employees. How does this apply for employees in a company?
Welcome to my world, and I love doing this.
Yeah, you're HR, so
I am. I really am. I'm an attorney, but I'm really an HR guy who knows the law really, really well. Okay. And actually, you do the stuff that I preach, you won't need a lawyer. Let me clue you in here. My clients that I've had that follow what I tell them to do, in 27 years, I've never had a client sued. Never. Because you take care of this stuff and nip it in the bud. Now, for employees, I will tell you, in January or February of 2020, just before COVID, the American Psychological Association came out and they said, we're at critical mass. We're at the tipping point for our mental health. And the biggest threat, now, one thing to understand is if my cell phone won't work or I lose it. Okay. I mean, people in America, they'd rather lose their kidney than lose their cell phone. I mean, oh my gosh, I've lost everything,
my whole life is there.
Yeah, it is. My whole life's in there. That will release cortisol and adrenaline. But remember, we've got a fight or flight system that's thousands of years old, and Fred Flintstone knew that a rock wouldn't kill him or that a cell phone wouldn't kill him. Another human will. Humans are 7 times more homicidal than any other animal on the planet. That's a lot. Okay. So when you get bullied at work and you spend more time at work than any place else. So if we allow harassment, if we allow bullying and we don't say anything, that will damage your brain very quickly. The biggest threat to your brain for most people are toxic relationships, and 75% of all employees in America, sometimes 85%, depending on the study, are miserable at work. They hate their job. And I'll tell you, I'm actually going to go and I'm going to spend 3 days at a fire station in a township for the next 3 days. Every employee has to go through my program where we're going to talk about bullying and harassment. And now, how do you get buy-in? If you allow bullying to happen here, you will damage your brain and you will lose your short-term memory. Your depression, your anxiety will get worse. And I show them my brain. And then I show them what it is today. And I said, this is what you got to do to fix it. Oh, and by the way, just a few years ago, we discovered, well, I didn't, but scientists discovered cortisol causes Alzheimer's. It will spread the roots of Alzheimer's. So think about this. If you had somebody who smoked cigarettes for 40 years and then they got lung cancer, quite frankly, you shouldn't be surprised. You smoke cigarettes for 40 years. What do you think is going to happen? You work with jackasses and live with jackasses for 40 years. Don't be surprised when you have Alzheimer's. Don't be surprised. Wow. There was actually, you're going to love this as a scientist. There are these old nuns. Nuns are great to study, because these old nuns, they got along with each other. They played Sudoku all day. They had a great life. Okay. They were really pretty wild. I mean, just wonderful people. When they died, all of them were in their 90s. They did autopsies on each one of these women. They all had Alzheimer's, every single one of them. But their lifestyle was so good, just like Betty White. You see, they had built those million connections every month for years and years and years and years. They had so many reserves, they weren't symptomatic. That's my goal. I drink my water. I hang around good people. And that's my message to all the employees. I say, I tell you what, you build those every day. If someone came up to you and smoking a cigarette and blew smoke in your face, you'd never let that happen. And if somebody was sitting over here smoking, you'd speak up. So why do we let bullies walk around and spread disease like Pepe Le Pew? You don't. You speak up. And so it's all tied in together. And I get buy-in. It's like, how do you get buy-in for diversity and tolerance? How do you get buy-in for harassment and bullying? I don't have that problem. I mean, I'll tell you, I got trips scheduled to California, Colorado, Florida, Indiana. I'm all over the place. I purposely live $25 to $35 cab ride to the airport because my bag is packed all the time. And when someone wants me to come and talk, I'm there, and they've never heard anything like this before. I had one. This is really good. The union, after they heard this message, they went up to the HR director and said, hey, this thing scared the bejeebies out of me. We got to talk. We got to start getting along. I can't do this anymore. And I pulled the records. About 93, 94% of everybody in that company was on serious psychiatric medications. Most people were on a couple. And I applaud those people. That's great. But don't make it worse.
Yeah. Well, and as you pointed out earlier, right? That's just suppressing the symptoms. It's not solving the root of the problem.
Yeah, really. Treat your brain like you would treat your feet. Then you'll be fine. You would never walk around with achy feet. It's like, ow, 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 ow. You would go out, and I always love this. Oh, boy, those vitamins are $100 to go buy these vitamins. Your shoes cost $350.
Where's your priorities?
Where's your priority? Look, I'll tell you right now. Look at Stephen Hawking. His body was just shot, but he had the most magnificent brain on earth. Oh my gosh. And that's who you are as a person. And that resonates with employees. It resonates with CEOs. And I'll tell you right now, I get buy-in from CEOs and COOs and OOs all over the place when they discover, hey, you really want Alzheimer's? Do you really want PTSD like I had? Do you really want that? And 30% of everybody that you're driving around, they got PTSD. This is epidemic.
Yeah. Wow. So, Scott, if somebody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
Well, I'm easy. I make it easy. Just go to scottwarrick.com, SCOTTWARRICK. And I literally have over 50 hours of free videos out there to watch on everything from management to how to heal the brain, how we damage the brain, how intolerance. I'll tell you, great studies coming out. If you're a bigot or a racist, you're doomed. And if you're the victim of racism or bigotry, you're doomed because it will flood your brain. And I got all that stuff at scottwarrick.com. I take it as a personal compliment when people go out there and watch the videos. I love that.
Great. Thanks. And that concludes our show. Thanks to our guest, Scott Warrick, author of Healing the Human Brain. I hope you've learned something about how to fix your broken brain. I know I did. Thanks for listening, and have a grateful day. You've been listening to the Profit Minds podcast. This is your host, Dr. Stephen Kirch. Please visit www.profitminds.net for other episodes or to contact me. Thank you for your positive feedback, comments, questions, and for sharing this show with others. Thanks for listening. Have a grateful day.